Hello everyone, welcome back to my stream. Yo bro, glad to see you around. Where's the lights? Lights, we need lights. Wait a sec. We might get some more items here. Look at that. Yup, let's do it. Careful with this platter. Some of them are stolen. These bloody tankers. Solution of vigor. Oh wow. Now we're loaded. And let's go and do some reading. Right. What are we going to read now? Okay, The Ransom of Zarek. Ancient Tales of the Dwemer Part 1 by Myra Barsul. What is that symbol? Jellimil. Or Jellimil. Alright, let's do it. Jellimil stood in her garden and read the letter her servant had brought to her. The bouquet of joss roses in her hand fell to the ground. For a moment it was as if all birds had ceased to sing and cloud had passed over the sky. Her carefully cultivated and structured haven seemed to flood over with darkness. We have thy son, it read. We will be in touch with thee shortly with our ransom demands. Zarek had never made it as far as Agun after all. One of the brigands on the road, orcs probably, or a cursed Dunmer, must have seen his well-appointed carriage and taken him hostage. Jellimil clutched at a post for support, wondering if her boy had been hurt. She was but a student, not the sort to fight against well-armed men, but had they beaten him, it was more than a mother's heart could bear to imagine. Don't tell me they sent the ransom note so quickly, called a family voice, and a familiar face appeared through the hedge. It was Zarek. Jellimil hurried to embrace her boy, tears running down her face. What happened? She cried. I thought you had been kidnapped. I was, said Zarek. 3 huge soaring Nords attacked my carriage on the Freeworn Pass. Brothers, as I learned, named Matthias, Ulin, and Kurg. Those should have seen these men, mother. Each of them would have had trouble fitting through the front door, I can tell thee. What happened? Jellimil repeated. Were thou rescued? I thought about waiting for that, but I knew they'd sent off a ransom note, and I know how they does worry. So I remembered what my mentor of Agun always said about remaining calm, observing thy surroundings, and looking for thy opponent's weakness. Yo, Piotr Rand? Welcome to my stream. Zarek grinned. It took a while though, because these fellows were truly monsters, and then when I listened to them bragging to one another, I realized that vanity was their weakness. What did thou do? They had me chained at their camp in the woods not far from Kael, on a high knoll overlooking the wide river. I heard one of them, Kurk, telling the others that it would take the better part of an hour to swim across the river and back. They were not in agreement when I spoke up. I could swim that river and back in 30 minutes, I said. Impossible, said Korg. I can swim faster than a little whelp like thee. So it was agreed that we would dive off the cliff, swim to the center island, and return. As we went to our respective rocks, Kurk took it upon himself to lecture me about all the fine points of swimming. The importance of synchronized movements of the arms and legs for maximum speed. How essential it was to breathe after only 3rd or 4th stroke, not too often to slow thyself down, but not too often to lose one's air. I nodded and agreed to all his fine points. Then we dove off the cliffs. I made it to the island and back in a little over an hour, but Kurg never returned. He had dashed his brains at the rocks at the base of the cliff. I had noticed the telltale undulations of underwater rocks and had taken the diving rock on the right. But thou returned? Asked Jellimil, astounded. Was that not then when thou escaped? It was too risky to escape then, said Zarek. They could have easily caught me again, and I wasn't keen to be blamed for Kurg's disappearance. I said I did not know what happened to him, and after some searching, they decided he had forgotten about the race and had swum ashore to hunt for food. They could not see how I could have had anything to do with his disappearance, as fully visible as I was throughout my swim. The two brothers began making camp along the rocky cliff edge, picking an ideal location so that I would not be able to escape. One of the brothers, Matthias, began commenting on the quality of the soil and the gradual incline of the rock that circled around the bay below. Ideal, he said, for a foot race. I expressed my ignorance of the sport, and he was keen to give me details of the proper technique for running a race. He made absurd faces, showing how one must breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, how to bend one's knees to the proper angle on the rise, the importance of sure foot placement. Most important, he explained, was that the runner keep an aggressive but not too strenuous pace if one intends to win. It is fine to run in the second place through the race, he said, provided one has the willpower and strength to pull out in the end. I was an enthusiastic student, and Matthias decided that we ought to run a quick race around the edge of the bay before night fell. William told us to bring back some firewood when we came back. We began at once down the path, skirting the cliff below. I followed his advice about breath, gait, and foot placement, but I ran with all my power right from the start. Despite his much longer legs, I was a few paces ahead as we would wound the first corner. With his eyes on my back, Matthias did not see the gap in the rock that I jumped over. He plummeted over the cliff before he had a chance to cry out. I spent a few minutes gathering some twigs before I returned to Ulan at camp. Now they were just showing off, frowned Jellimil. Surely that would have been a good time to escape. Thou might think so, agreed Zarek, but thou had to see the topography, a few large trees and then nothing but shrubs. Ulin would have noticed my absence and caught up with me in no time, and I would have had a hard time explaining Matthias' absence. However, the brief forage around the area allowed me to observe some of the trees close up, and I could formulate my final plan. When I got back to camp with a few twigs, I told Ulin that Matthias was slow coming along, dragging a large dead tree behind him. Ulin scoffed at his brother's strength, saying it would take him time to pull up a live tree by the roots and drop it on the bonfire. I expressed reasonable doubt. "I'll show thee," he said, ripping off a 10-foot tall specimen effortlessly. "But that's scarcely a sapling," I objected. "I thought thou could rip up a tree." His eyes followed mine to a magnificent heavy-looking one at the edge of the clearing. Ulin grabbed it and began to shake it with a tremendous force to loosen its roots from the dirt. With that, he loosened the hive from the uppermost branches, dropping it down onto his head. "That was when I made my escape, mother," said Zarek in conclusion, showing a little schoolboy pride. While Matthias and Kurg were at the base of the cliff, and Ulin was flailing about, engulfed by a swarm, Jellimil embraced her son once again. Publisher's note: I was reluctant to publish the works of Marobar Sul, but when the University of Phylum Press asked me to edit this edition, I decided to use this as an opportunity to set the record straight once and for all. Scholars do not agree on the exact date of Marobar Sul's work, but it is generally agreed that they were written by the playwright Gore Phelim, famous for popular comedies and romances during the interregnum between the fall of the First Cyrodiilic Empire and the rise of Tiber Septim. The current theory holds that Phelim heard a few genuine Dwemer tales and adapted them to the stage in order to make money, along with rewritten versions of many of his own plays. Gore Phelim created the persona of Marobar Sul, who could translate the Dwemer language in order to add some sort of validity to the work and make it even more valuable to the gullible. Note that while Marobar Sul and his works became the subject of heated controversy, there are no reliable records of anyone actually meeting Marobar Sul, nor was there anyone of that name employed by the Mages Guild, the School of Julianus, or any other intellectual institution. In any case, the Dwemer in most of the tales of Marobar Sul bear little resemblance to the fearsome, unfathomable race that frightened even the Dunmer, Norse and Redguards into submission and build ruins that even now have yet to be understood. Well, that's the second story. Let's go and sell some stuff and read the second part.
Plenty of fresh fish for you. See it for yourself.
What a nice longbow I have. Well, I could give him a little discount.
These are troubled times. Be on your guard out there.
You look like everything I've got on display, really.
Wait, I've got 3 hostile targets in front of me. What just happened?
Come back when you figure out how to spend money.
There are 3 hostile targets on the radar. Might that be? They are up there.
So nice to have pleasant company for a change. Remember Radiant?
Oh, they are... Yeah, they are outside of Imperial main tower, which means... Damn it, I walked into the wrong location. These guys are remained hostile after my escape
Hey, watch it!
during my quest of the Dark Brotherhood.
Spiced wine for you? See for yourself. Good luck out there. Seems like a tough time to be wandering skyward.
Bits and pieces now.
Beer and...
Oh, a bit of this and a bit of that.
Oh, we're selling this longbow. Perfect trade, thanks, Seima.
Back to bits and pieces anytime.
Oh, what... Clothes and raiment for the discerning customer.
Thanks, Andrew.
Finally.
Spare some gold for a veteran?
Here, have a gold piece.
Oh, thank you. Divines bless your kind heart. It's best you leave me be.
Right, Winking Skeever is up next.
Welcome to drink for the thirsty, food for the hungry. Remember the winking skeever. Next time your foot's sore.
What? She's closed? She's closed her shop. Oh well.
Seems there's no end to the needs of the Imperial. Blades, helmets, pretty much anything to suit your needs.
I don't have any other weapons, right? Right.
Return anytime you need arms or armor. My forge never left.
Okay, now only one trader left that I know of. She's always asleep at the Blue Palace. I think it's a high privilege of being the course wizard and being able to sleep whenever you want. So she sleeps her whole days off.
It's a fine day with you around. If you have business, please see Falk Firebeard,
Do you
my
have
steward.
business with the court?
Be well.
The Imperials are good for business, and business is good for Skyrim.
Fancy yourself an alchemist, huh? Never could get that.
Please address all questions to the steward, Falk Firebeard.
The Jarl is not to be disturbed with common affairs of court. You direct those concerns
I wanted
to me.
to hear him out about giving Markarth over to the Stormcloaks, but okay.
You have something to say, dog? Something on your mind? Igmund is alive, and I'll keep it that way, Jarl or not. You lay one finger on Igmund, and I'll end you, Stormcloak.
I can't believe we lost Markarth. Igmund's family has ruled there for generations. I don't think we have anything to discuss, Stormcloak. Well, hello.
I don't like talking to someone who holds their honor so cheaply. Stormcloaks have taken the Reach, but will return. The Empire will bring order. What do you want? Haven't you done enough damage to Markarth?
No. I'd like to take some things
What
off
do
you.
want? Don't even Haven't you done enough damage to Markarth?
I can sleep in your beds.
Out with it.
Need something? Well, hello.
Right, now we know. Both sides are equally unhappy with us. I say I'm glad, but I didn't trade with the Course Wizard, damn it. Let's go and do that.
If I... So, you wish to master the arcane arts?
Indeed I do. Good trade.
Vampires are for hunters. More clever than you, definitely.
Right, now let's go for the next book in our collection, The Seed. Ancient Tales for the Dwemer, Part 2 by Maero Barsul. The hamlet village of Lorik was a quiet, peaceful Dwemer community nestled in the monochrome grey and tan dunes and boulders of the Dejeseed. No vegetation of any kind grew in Lorik, though there were blackened vestiges of long-dead trees scattered throughout the town. Cambida, arriving by caravan, looked at her new home with despair. She was used to the forest land of the north, where her father's family had hailed. Here there was no shade, little water, and a great open sky. It looked like a dead land. Her mother's family took Candida and her younger brother Nevith in, and was very kind to the orphans, but she felt lonely in the alien village. It was not until she met an old Argonian woman who worked at the water factory that Cambida found a friend. Her name was Sigurtha, and she said that her family had lived in Lorik centuries before the Dwemer arrived, when it was a great and beauteous forest. Why did the trees die? Asked Candida. When there were Argonians on this land, we never cut trees, for we had no need for fuel or wooden structures such as you use. When the Dwemer came, we allowed them to use the plants as they needed them, provided they never touched the Hist, which are sacred to us and to the land. For many years we lived peacefully, no one wanted for anything. What happened? Some of your scientists discovered that distilling a certain tree sap, molding it and drying it, they could create a resilient kind of armor called resin, said Sigurtha. Most of the trees that grew here had very thin ichor in their branches, but not the Hist. Many of them fairly glistened with sap, which made the Dwemer merchants greedy. They hired a woodsman named Junin to start clearing the sacred arbors for profit. The old Argonian woman looked at the dusty ground and sighed. Of course, we Argonians cried out against it. It was our home, and the Hist, once gone, would never return. The merchants reconsidered, but Junin took it on his own to break our spirit. He proved one terrible bloody day that his prodigious skill with the axe could be used against people as well as trees. Any Argonian who stood in his way was hewn asunder, children as well. The Dwemer people of Lorik closed their doors and their ears to the cries of murder. Horrible, gasped Candida. It is difficult to explain, said Sigurtha, but the deaths of our living ones was not nearly as horrible to us as the death of our trees. You must understand that to my people, the Hist are where we come from and where we are going. To destroy our bodies is nothing. To destroy our trees is to annihilate us utterly. When Junin then turned his axe on the Hist, he killed the land. The water disappeared, the animals died, and all the other life that the trees nourished crumbled and dried to dust. But you are still here, asked Candida. Why didn't you leave? For us, we are trapped. I am one of the last of a dying people. Few of us are strong enough to live away from our ancestral groves, and sometimes, even now, there is a perfume in the air of Lorik that gives us life. It will not be long until we are all gone. Candida felt tears welling up in her eyes. Then I will be alone in this horrible place with no trees and no friends. We Argonians have an expression, said Sigathe with a sad smile, taking Candida's hand, that the best soil for a seed is found in your heart. Candida looked into the palm of her hand and saw that Sigathe had given her a small black pellet. It was a seed. It looks dead. It can only grow in one place in all Lorek, said the old Argonian, outside an old cottage in the hills outside town. I cannot go there, for the owner would kill me on sight, and like all my people, I am too frail to defend myself now. But he could go there and plant the seed. What will happen? Asked Candida. Will the Hist return? No, but some part of their power will. That night, Candida stole from her house and into the hills. She knew the cottage Sigathe had spoken of. Her aunt and uncle had told her never to go there. As she approached it, the door opened and an old but powerfully built man appeared, a mighty axe slung over his shoulder. What are you doing here, child? He demanded. In the dark, I almost took you to be a lizard man. I've lost my way in the dark, she said quickly. I'm trying to get back to my home in Lorek. Be on your way then. Do you have a candle I might have? She asked piteously. I've been walking in circles and I'm afraid I'll only return back here without any light. The old man grumbled and walked into his house. Quickly Candida dug a hole in the dry dirt, and buried the seed as deeply as she could. He returned with a lit candle. See to it you don't come back here, he growled, or I'll chop you in half. He returned to his house and fire. The next morning, when he awoke and opened the door, he found that his cottage was entirely sealed with an enormous tree. He picked up his axe and delivered blow after blow to the wood, but he could never break through. He tried side chops, but the wood healed itself. He tried an upper chop followed by an under chop to form a wedge, but the wood sealed. Much time went by before someone discovered old Julian's emaciated body lying in front of his open door, still holding his blunted, broken axe. It was a mystery to all what he had been chopping with it, but the legend began circulating through Lorek that Hist was found with a blade. Shortly thereafter, small desert flowers began pushing through the dry dirt in the town. Trees and plants newly sown began to live tolerably well, if not luxuriantly. The Hist did not return, but Candida and the people of Lorek noticed that at a certain time around twilight, long, white shadows of great bygone trees would fill the streets and hills. Publisher's note: the seed is one of Marbar Sul's tales whose origins are well known. This tale originated from the Argonian slaves of southern Morrowind. Marbar Sul merely replaced the Dunmer with Dwemer and claimed he found it in a Dwemer ruin. Furthermore, he later claimed that Argonian version of the tale was merely a retelling of his original. Lorek, while clearly not a Dwemer name, simply does not exist, and in fact Lorek was a name commonly used incorrectly for Dunmer men in Gorfelim's place. The Argonian versions of the story usually take place in Vardenfell, usually in the Tilvani city of Sadrith Mora. Of course, the so-called scholars of Temple Zero will probably claim this story has something to do with Lorkhan simply because the town starts with the letter L. Ha! I don't fit in this hole.
Honor to you, my...
Well, now we can go to Markarth, and probably this will be the last town we'll head into in this game, because I've been in all the others. We've also took all the stuff from here because we're going to sell it in Markarth. Yeah, only 10,000 pieces of gold left to reach our goal of 6 million pieces of gold. Oh, we may also speak to these guys. Okay. We should go through here. Through the Stormcloak encampment, as we need to trade a bit. Also, I'm afraid that the Forsworn cultists probably respawned near Blade's new sanctuary, so we'll need to unload if we want to speak to Esbern and Delphine once again.
If you know any true sons and daughters.
Take a look.
Stormcloak wants to see.
You might come across the Skyhaven Temple. We also might go there to more Kazguer, I mean, to trade with orcs. Tim, this Stormcloak encampment is situated in such a strange place. They don't have any escape routes, but they're cornered. Monarch Butterfly.
So what's your story? My cousin disappeared.
I thought it was a person like Nazgul. Right. Here's a question. Are Nazguls monsters? Or still persons and people? Who might you be, sir?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Stay alert. Never know when it's Stormcloak.
It's funny how Igmund, the Jarl of Marquette, calls a Stormcloak, and the Jarls of Winterhold and Dawnstar call us an Imperial.
Greetings, brother. You look weary. I have something to help you with. Take a look.
Shit. I need to put on my trading mask.
Take a look.
These prices are bad. At least we can sell 2 of these silver goblets to him.
All right.
They're stolen anyway. Oh, it's beautiful here. I doubt that the orcs will have enough money to cover all the goods I have, but still. At least they'll help me unload myself. Where the heck am I? Right, we need to keep on going. We're still too far away from the orcish stronghold. Right, no skeleton warriors, which is good. Why the hell are you attacking me? Good. Now you were killed by the bandit. It's the Forsworn pillager.
Just stand still.
I already can see that this arrow hit the organ you don't need, but still. Can't you just die?
I knew I'd find you.
Mmm, 60 gold pieces, nice. Let's go and sell some armor. More Khazgur.
You should see my mother, Shara. If you need a cure. Poison. I have poisons for your weapons. Ah, so you're an alchemist then.
Whoa. Where did you get that? Nordic cart armor.
So you're interested in my potions and ingredients.
Potions and ingredients. I like the way she's saying that.
All right. Are you looking to work? Take a look.
Are you looking for work? Take a look. Oh, nice.
Until now.
Right, they really helped me unload. Wait a sec. The blades don't have any traders, so first things first, we go to Markarth. Alright, we got no soul gems now. My ass was bitten. Right, if we want to provoke him, we won't need to kill him. There are 2 targets over there. Druada readout. Good. Right, we've got several measures in case we are encumbered. Someone just fallen from sky over there. Where are you guys?
We are on the hunt.
Okay. Let's trade then.
It will be meat from fresh kills.
It took the...
Alright then.
That bitch. They took the money. I mean, they took the... What the... Right, he paid with his life. For such stupidity. What is the most pitiful potion of strength? This one. Right, let's go. Let's hope that they're not that stupid to attack me. It's a dead end. There's an Imperial encampment in front of us. Let's see if we can trade with them. Oh, they are attacked by a cave bear.
Legion's all looking for strong, capable warriors.
You're trespassing. You better clear out.
I'm trespassing. How about this guy?
Stay sharp. Can't wait to kill another of Alfred's boys.
Move along.
Okay, okay. You might kill the dragon yourselves, by the way. You're such a dicks. Draw of destruction.
I wish to buy. So we meet again. Let's make a deal.
Let's make a deal. His prices are shitty, but at least he might help us in unloading.
Let's make a deal.
That's not too big a discount we give him.
Ah, sweet oblivion.
Even some Nerdroot. Really, I'm astounded. I didn't expect to find a dragon near any settlement or in Skyrim after what we did. Still, it's not controversial with the story, so... damn it, what the hell was that? I don't have anything against you guys. The first goat I slayed was slayed because I thought it wasn't a goat, it was some sort of a wolf. But they still see me? What the hell are they? Can still see me.
I find your hand in my pocket. I'm going to cut it off.
Okay, so we're finally here.
What is it? Dragons? One of the guards said he saw a mage appear out of thin air.
Believe any? Take a look. Come back when you need more meat. Bring gold.
Need something?
I heard about you being pardoned. Beautiful things for beautiful people. Come back if you need a new ring or necklace.
Alright, do they have anything new to tell me?
Come on in. The Silverblood Inn has plenty of strong drink. Oh, it's you. Sorry to hear. Drink for the thirsty, food for the hungry. Remember, hell is cheaper than blood in Markarth.
My father, Klepper, is the one you want to talk to. I just clean up.
Unlike my husband Klepper, I watch after our guests. Depends. I should remind Klepper.
She's cleaning it up herself. What's the problem?
Yes.
Hail, companion.
I'm not just companion, I'm a companion harbinger.
Everyone's been talking about you.
Good.
A fine day to you. Some may call this junk. Me, I call them treasures.
Treasures. Wait, before we do anything, we need to enchant some stuff. We still got some daylight, so let's do it. What the hell just happened? Sorting mechanism? Yeah, you can see that some sort of sorting just worked. Ah, marker.
My favorite drinking buddy. Let's get some mead. Holmes. I said Holmes, you backbiter. Give a crippled worker a helping.
So there's... Oh, a bit of this and a bit of that.
I will give you a discount. No trouble.
If you need anything else, just ask.
Everything all right?
Yeah, everything alright. I just pushed the beggar.
May your weapons be sharp. Take a look.
Hey, by the way, I'd like to make an investment in your shop.
Excellent. I think you'll be glad that you made this decision.
Damn it.
If you change your mind, you know where to find me. Looking to protect yourself or deal some damage?
That bug quest. $6 million pieces of gold, we did it! Where's 6 million pieces of gold? Yay! Well, that's one more goal. Just reached.
Thank you again for resolving my...
Ah, so you're an alchemist then.
You'll have a discount then.
Now, you let me know if you need a cure.
Right, 2 more shops left. I like this town, most of them probably because it has waterfalls. But Dragon's Reach is really so cool.
Good to see Sky. I had you figured for a mage. I think you'll appreciate this.
up an entire town. Damn college.
I first need to trade with the personal blacksmith.
May your next... I'm the Jarl's personal blacksmith. Looking to protect yourself or deal some damage?
$17, isn't it?
Until next time.
There's a small skeever there just east of the
You're
city.
the one cast
Reach
those
water well.
illusions. Impressive.
You've been a good friend to me. That means something.
What's with the sour face?
Good to see you. Finally, someone useful is around.
My brother
I should
tells
get
me
back
you've
to
done us a
work.
service.
Money doesn't count
Thank
itself.
you. In honor of your service in battle, I am hereby granting you permission to purchase property in Markarth. Talk to my steward if you're interested.
Is Markarth prepared to deal with dragons?
The stone structure the dwarves have left makes us invincible. Let the dragons singe a few carpets. They'll never topple Markarth.
What's your position in the war?
The Imperials were weak. They created this forsworn problem. But now that we're in charge, we'll solve it. Once the war is over, I'll petition Ulfric to send the militia, and we'll cleanse the Reach of this menace. Then the Forsworn will be where they belong, in the mines, bringing us wealth.
My Jarl, is there anything else you need?
There is room in my court for a new Thane. It's an honorary title mainly, but there are a few perks someone like you could make use of. However, I could only grant the title to someone who is known throughout my hold, and who owns at least one piece of property in my city. You help my people, and purchase a house from my steward, and I'll make you my Thane.
It will be my honor.
As you were then.
I've helped your people as you asked.
Then by my right as Jarl, I name you Thane of the Reach. Congratulations. I grant you a personal housecarl to watch over your home, and this weapon from my armory to serve as your badge of office. I'll also notify my guards of your new title. Wouldn't want them to think you're part of the, common rabble now.
Blade of the Reach. Nice.
Stay out of trouble in my city.
Hey, all the Thalmor now escaped. I didn't see them in Solitude, and they're not here any longer. The game is acting up on me. Let me fix this. I hope it won't glitch because of that. It didn't. I'm glad. Oh, it's 6 p.m. Alright, I'll be back. You may watch this serene scenery for a few moments. Right, here I am. Beautiful.
Don't do that.
Okay, let's do some reading now. Books. Dowry. That's part 10. The Importance of Wear. Ancient Tales of the Dwemer, part 3 by Marobar Sul. The chieftain of Othobar gathered his wise men together and said, "Every morning a tenfold of my flock are found butchered. What is the cause?" Fengbith, the war leader, said, "A monster may be coming down from the mountain and devouring your flock." Gorek, the healer, said, "A strange new disease perhaps is to blame." Baron the priest said, "We must sacrifice to the goddess for her to save us." The wise men made sacrifices, and while they waited for their answers from the goddess, Fengbith went to mentor Jolterag and said, "You taught me well." "Oh, hey, Marys." "Hello, welcome to my channel. Glad you dropped by." We're reading lore here in Skyrim. The game is completed, so we need to read all the lore we have. That's all these books. Well, most of them. Some of them can't be unloaded. So everyone, this is Mary. She's a streamer, and I met her streams while she was streaming the Witcher stories, The Witcher 3 to be exactly. You can tell, don't let you interrupt me. Okay. Alright. We read this book, The Importance of Wear. Yeah, Witcher. That's a really nice game. I like to watch whenever I can. And play it, of course. Alright, we were... The wise men made sacrifices, and while they waited for their answers from the goddess, Fengbith went to mentor Jolterag and said, "You taught me well how to forge the cudgel of Zolia and how to wield it in combat, but I must know now when it is wise to use my skill. Do I wait for the goddess to reply or the medicine to work, or do I hunt the monster which I know is in the mountain?" "When is not important," said Jolterag. "Where is all that is important." You appreciate it? Oh, you can't stay long, but we will hang and knit for a moment. Oh, nice. Thank you. Have a nice knitting, by the way. So Fengbith took his Zola cudgel in hand and walked far through the dark forest until he came to the base of the great mountain. There he met two monsters. One, blooded with the flesh of the chieftain of Othobar's flock, fought him while its mate fled. Fengbith remembered what his master had taught him, that wear was all that was important. He struck the monster on each of its 5 vital points: head, groin, throat, back and chest. 5 blows to the 5 points and the monster was slain. Which was too heavy to carry with him, but still triumphant, Fengbith returned to Orthbar. "You're welcome, Mary." "I say I have slain the monster that ate your flock," he cried. "What proof have you that you have slain any monster?" asked the chieftain. "I say I have saved the flock with my medicine," said Gorek the healer. "I say the goddess has saved the flock by my sacrifices," said Baron the priest. 2 mornings went by and the flocks were safe, but on the morning of the 3rd day, another tenfold of the chieftain's flock was found butchered. Gorik the healer went to his study to find a new medicine. Baron the priest prepared more sacrifices. Fangbith took his Zola cudgel in hand again and walked far through the dark forest until he came to the base of the great mountain. There he met the other monster, bloodied with the flesh of the chieftain of Orthobar's flock. They did battle, and again Fangbith remembered what his master had taught him, that where was all that was important. He struck the monster 5 times on the head and it fled. Chasing it along the mountain, he struck it 5 times in the groin and it fled. Running through the forest, Fangbith overtook the monster and struck it 5 times in the throat and it fled. Entering into the fields of Orthobar, Fangbith overtook the monster and struck it 5 times in the back and it fled. At the foot of the stronghold, the chieftain and his wise men emerged to the sound of the monster wailing. There they beheld the monster that had slain the chieftain's flock. Fangbith struck the monster 5 times in the chest and it was slain. A great feast was held in Fangbith's honor, and the flock of Orthobar was never again slain. Jolteric embraced his students and said, "You have at last learned the importance of where you strike your blows." Publisher's note: this tale is another which has an obvious origin among the Ashlander tribes of Vardenfell, and is one of their oldest tales. Mauro Barsul merely changed the names of the character to sound more dwarven, and resolved it as part of his collection. The great mountain in the tale is clearly Red Mountain, despite its description of being forested. The starfall and later eruptions destroyed the vegetation on Red Mountain, giving it the wasted appearance it has today. This tale does have some scholarly interest, as it suggests a primitive Ashlander culture, but it talks of living in strongholds much like the ruined strongholds of Vardenfell today. There are even references to a stronghold of Orthobar, somewhere between Vardenfell and Skyrim, but few strongholds outside of sparsely settled Vardenfell have survived to the present. Scholars do not agree on who built these strongholds or when, but I believe it is clear from this story and other evidence that the Ashlander tribes used these strongholds in the ancient past instead of making camps of wickweed huts as they do today. The play on words that forms the lesson of the fable, that is as important to know where the monster should be slain at the stronghold as it is to know where the monster must be struck on its body to be slain. Is typical of many Ashlander tales. Riddles, even ones as simple as this one, are loved by both the Ashlanders and the vanished Dwemer, although the Dwemer are usually portrayed as presenting the riddles rather than being the ones who solve it as in Ashlander tales. Right, the dowry is part 10 of these stories. Oh, no. Do not read. This is a special book. Yeah, I'm reading all that. Right now I'm looking if there is any other Dwemer. Are you impressed? Okay. It's just all this lore, it represents all the stories going around in this game and all the previous parts. Also, it reminds us of what we already have completed back in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. You take your head off to me. Sometimes when there is too much reading in The Witcher, you give up. Oh, well, during my last stream with my first work colleague, we've read a few books from the bookshop, where we bought all the books for later reading. Also, it adds some notes to the bestiary when we read it, so we read like 3 or 4 books in a row, and usually we play through some activity in the game, and only after that we read again. So not to transform the stream into the reading one. Makes sense. Yeah, here I try to disperse my activities so that it won't be a total reading stream, but it might be because we have so much books here, and I really would like to finally conclude it. Skyrim reading channel, yeah. But there is one thing that still makes me doubt. Some books we found and some we did not, meaning that some books may be read only through Wikipedia. I don't know right now how we will read them, or should we read them, because I've managed to explore this whole Skyrim world, and some of the books I did not find only because it is hidden in some containers, like Bob Ross painting stream. Very chill. Oh. Yeah, the game has vast map. We are here in Markarth. I can. In fact, as you can see, the books we were reading are the for instance, the Dowry, Ancient Tales of the Dwemer, Part 10. So we've read Part 1, 2, and 3. So from 3 to 10, I don't know if there are any parts in this game, so we'll have to check it out in Wikipedia, probably. But still, from the first 3 parts, I know that these stories aren't related to each other. So we may read it as well. Inalai was the wealthiest landowner in Gunal, and he had over the years saved a tremendous dowry for the man who would marry his daughter, Jennifer. When she reached the age of consent, he locked the gold away for safekeeping and announced his intention to have her marry. She was a comely lass, a scholar, a great athlete, but dour and brooding in aspect. This personality defect did not bother her potential suitors any more than her positive traits impressed them. Every man knew the tremendous wealth that would be his as the husband of Jennifer and son-in-law of Inalai. That alone was enough for hundreds to come to Gunal to pay court. The man who will marry my daughter, said Inalai to the assembled, must not be doing so purely out of avarice. He must demonstrate his own wealth to my satisfaction. This simple pronouncement removed a vast majority of the suitors who knew they could not impress the landowner with their meager fortunes. A few dozen did come forward within a few days, clad in fine Killar cloth of spun silver, accompanied by exotic servants, traveling in magnificent carriages. Of all who came who met with Inalai's approval, none arrived in a more resplendent fashion than Welen Neyrilik. The young man who no one had ever heard of arrived in a shining ebon coach drawn by a team of dragons, his clothing of rarest manufacture, and accompanied by an army of the most fantastical servants any of Gunal had ever seen. Valets with eyes on all sides of their heads, maidservants that seemed cast in gemstones, but such was not enough with Inalai. The man who marries my daughter must prove himself an intelligent fellow, for I would not have an ignoramus as a son-in-law and business partner, he declared. This eliminated a large part of the wealthy suitors who, through their lives of luxury, had never needed to think very much, or if at all. Still, some came forward over the next few days, demonstrating their wit and learning, quoting the great sages of the past, and offering their philosophies of metaphysics and alchemy. Welen Neyrilik too came and asked Inalai to dine at the villa he had rented outside of Gunal. There, the landowner saw scores of scribes working on translations of Aldmeri tracts and enjoyed the young man's somewhat irreverent but intriguing intelligence. Yeah, this is Skyrim music. Hola, Julio? Nevertheless, though he was much impressed with Welen Neyrilik, Inalai had another challenge. I love my daughter very much, said Inalai, and I hope that the man who marries her will make her happy as well. Should any of you make her smile, she and the great dowry are yours. So Julio, welcome. We're doing a reading stream now. So everyone, this is Julio. He's a streamer. Lately he was streaming the console games. The latest stream was of the game called Heavy Rain. I partially saw this game, and I think I also remember a bit how it ended, but still, he's a great streamer and is really worthy to see how he streams it, and I think he's doing great in this game. Alright, that's for a short introduction of Julio, and let us return to our reading. So, should any of you make her smile, she and the great dowry are yours. The suitors line up for days, singing her songs, proclaiming their devotion, describing her beauty in the most poetic of terms. Jennifer merely glared at all with hatred and melancholia. Inalay, who stood by her side, began to despair at last. His daughter's suitors were failing to amend at this task. Finally, Welland Nearilla came to the chamber. "I will make your daughter smile," he said. "I dare say I'll make her laugh, but only after you've agreed to marry us. If she is not delighted with one hour of our engagement, the wedding can be called off." Inalay turned to his daughter. She was not smiling, but her eyes had sparked with some morbid curiosity in this young man. As no other suitor had even registered that for her, he agreed. "The dowry is naturally not to be paid till after you've wed," said Inalay. "Being engaged is not enough." "Might I see the dowry still?" asked Welland. Knowing how fabled the treasure was and understanding that this would likely be the closest the young man would come to possessing it, Inalay agreed. He had grown quite fond of Welland. On his orders, Welland, Inalay, Glum Jennifer, and the Castellan delved deep into the stronghold of Gunal. The first vault had to be opened by touching a series of runic symbols. Should one of the marks be mispressed, a volley of poisoned arrows would have struck the thief. Inalay was particularly proud of the next level of security. A lock composed of blades with 18 tumblers required 3 keys to be turned simultaneously to allow entry. The blades were designed to eviscerate any who merely picked one of the locks. Finally, they reached the storeroom. It was entirely empty. "By Lorcan, we've been burgled!" cried Inalay. "But how? Who could have done this?" "A humble, but, if I may say so, rather talented burglar," said Welland. "A man who has loved your daughter from afar for many years, but did not possess the glamour or the learning to impress. That is, until the gold from her dowry afforded me the opportunity." "You!" bellowed Inalay, scarcely able to believe it. Then something even more unbelievable happened. Jennifer began to laugh. She had never even dreamed of meeting anyone like this thief. She threw herself into his arms before her father's outraged eyes. After a moment, Inalay too began to laugh. Jennifer and Welland were married in a month's time. Though he was in fact quite poor and had little scholarship, Inalay was amazed how much his wealth increased with such a son-in-law and business partner. He only made certain never to ask from whence came the excess gold. You love this? This is like an audiobook but with a Russian accent. Publisher's note. The tale of a man trying to win the hand of a maiden whose father, usually a wealthy man or a king, tests each suitor is quite common. See, for instance, the more recent 4 Suitors of Benita by Joel Yoleves. The behavior of the characters is quite out of character for the Dwemer. No one today knows their marriage customs or even if they had marriage at all. One rather odd theory of the disappearance of the dwarves came from this and a few other tales of Morabar Sul. It was proposed that the Dwemer never in fact left. They did not depart Nirn, much less the continent of Tamriel, and they are still among us, disguised. These scholars used the story of Azura and the box to suggest the Dwemer feared Azura, a being they could neither understand nor control, and they adopted the dress and manner of Kimmer and Altmer in order to hide from Azura's gaze. Alright. I need a swig of tea. And let us read some more. The Red Year by Melis Revel, Volume 1. Can't recall if I read that. What tea am I drinking? Oh, the usual one. It is called Kenyan Sunrise. This is just a tea. Alright. Now we're reading The Red Year, Volume 1 by Melis Revel. Kenyan Sunrise sounds nice. Yeah, it has nice flavor in it. Forward. When I originally decided to write this accounting of the Red Year, I elected to travel across Morrowind and speak to the Dunmer people themselves. I sought first-hand accounts and personal views about the cataclysmic event. I felt that if I simply did the research in the library's text at the College of Winterhold, I wasn't really telling the tale that needed to be told. What struck me as I moved from city, town to town, camp to camp, is that all of the Dunmer I met shared an incredible bond of sheer courage and unshakable faith. So what began as a chronicle of one of the worst events in the history of Morrowind became something altogether different, the celebration of a people who can never be defeated. Boyfriend always drinks Russian Earl Grey. Alright. Dralin Ves, Tear. The ground, it just turned into mush. There was almost no warning. I mean, we were what, perhaps a mile from the nearest swamps? It was like the swamp suddenly swallowed up half of the city. I asked him to describe what happened from the beginning. I owned a farm just outside of Tyr at the time. We were planting the next season's crops and getting ready to store what we had harvested. Everything was going well until the Red Mountain exploded. Almost immediately, the ground rumbled and shook. Cracks started forming everywhere and the water just started seeping through. It was awful. In a matter of hours, I was knee-deep in swamp water running for my life. Where I was running, I had no idea. At first I ran towards the city itself, but it looked like the walls were cracking. All around me, people were desperately trying to save their livestock and their families from the rising water. Just when the ground shaking finally died down and I had a moment to think, there was a horrible cracking noise. I'll never forget it because I knew what it was before I looked. The entire southern wall of Tyr collapsed, sending guards tumbling into the swamp. I heard people screaming as they were covered by the rubble and forced down into the water. Forgetting my own problems, I looked over at my fellow farmers who were all staring at the carnage unfolding before us. Suddenly, we all just forgot our own problems and ran to help. There must have been hundreds of the poorer folk who lived outside the walls, helping the richer ones who lived in the city. Never saw anything like that. I think we must have saved hundreds more that day. Neria Kelethil. Not Relethil. Gnesis. Neria was badly burned by the eruption and had trouble speaking to me. She is currently convalescing at the Temple of Azurian Blacklight even after all these years. I've tried to record her story to the best of my ability. It was such a terrible thing, the fire. It burned everything in its path. It flattened trees, turned out huts into splinters, and knocked over towers like they were made from parchment. It all happened in an instant, a rumbling sound, then a massive wall of flame. It was so high it blocked out the sun. I thought that the world itself had split apart. It passed over the water and turned into steam, vaporized everything it touched. When it finally hit us, I was blown off my feet. Didn't even have time to run away or seek shelter, and ended up in the riverbed next to town, which kept some of the flames off me. All around could smell the charred stench of death. There were Dunmer that were burned alive, and some never even saw it coming. I lay in that riverbed for 2 days before the healers found me. When I could finally stand, Gnesis was gone. There wasn't a thing left. It's as though it was wiped from the face of Tamriel. Oh, this book is at least short. Alright, The Red Year, Volume 2, by Melis Revel. Forward. Oh, it's the same forward, so we'll just skip it, because we just read it in the previous book. Saldos Lervo, Vivec City. I was a trader back then. Ran a pack guar from Vivec City clear down to Narsis. I was walking along the south road when the strangest thing happened. All of the noise around me stopped. The normal things one hears as they travel, like the sound of the wind blowing through the treetops. It was just deathly quiet. I felt a tingling sensation all over my body, and my guar began to stomp around. Whatever it was driving him crazy. As I tried to get him under control, there was a massive explosion from the center of the city. I saw the cantons fall apart before I was knocked off my feet. Then I remember the ground starting to rumble. It lasted for a long time and it receded into the distance, as if directed towards the center of Vardenfell. A few minutes later, the Red Mountain erupted, sending a huge cloud of fire into the sky. My pack guar had long since fled, and I decided I should do the same. I never stopped running until I reached Narcissus. I asked him if he knew what had happened to Vivec City. I didn't hear until much later that the Ministry of Truth had struck the heart of the city. What I do know for certain is that many Dunmer lost their lives that day and that Vivec City is no more. Well, these events are going back to the days of the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Okay, you have to go to bed. Oh, you're welcome for the stream. See you around and come by sometimes. Theros Dran, Mournhold. The Red Year didn't heavily affect Mournhold itself, but it touched many of the people who lived there. A lot of us had relatives somewhere on Vardenfell, and after the first day that the eruption occurred, we started receiving reports of widespread devastation in Vivec City. Sadrith Mora, Balmora, and Aldrun. Yeah, see you around. Have fun. Thank you. I will. Right, we started receiving reports of widespread devastation in Vivec City, Sadrith Mora, Balmora, and Aldrun. I don't think a single night went by for months where you wouldn't hear someone openly weeping. It was a sad time for all of us. I asked if Mournhold had sustained any damage during the Red Year. I don't know why, but the destruction seemed to pass us by. A few Dunmer claimed that it was the Tribunal watching over us, but others claimed that the Tribunal was to blame for everything. I actually saw a few of those disagreements come to blows. It was a strange time. I got an interesting response from Theros regarding Mournhold's role during the Red Year. Relief efforts began almost a month after the mountain erupted. It was actually a directive that came from the House Redoran council that was living in Mournhold at that time. I can't remember his name, but he took charge of the situation and sent soldiers, supplies, and able-bodied Dunmer to the outlying settlements that had been hit the hardest. I was sent to Balmora. The place was a mess. Hardly anything left in town was still standing. I spent maybe 2 months there, helping to rebuild the town and getting my fellow Dunmer back on their feet. I started out as a burden, but it ended up being the most rewarding thing I'd ever done in my life. I started some friendships that still last to this day, including my beloved wife. Cleansing the Fane. Shmormavidium, Ancient Tales of the Dwemer Part 6 by Marobar Sul. After many battles, it was clear who would win the war. The Khmer had great skills in magic and bladery, but against the armored battalions of the Dwemer, clad in the finest shielding wrought by Ishnago, there was little hope of their ever winning. In the interest of keeping some measure of peace in the land, Thovin, the warlord, agreed to a truce with Karenithil Berith the Beast. In exchange for disputed lands, Thovin gave Bareth Mighty Golem, which would protect the Khmer's territory from the excursions of the northern barbarians. Barif was delighted with his gift and brought it back to his camp, where all his warriors gaped in awe at it. Sparkling golden hue, it resembled a Dwemer cavalier with a proud aspect. To test his strength, they placed the golem in the center of an arena and flung magical bolts of lightning at it. Its agility was such that few of the bolts struck it. It had the wherewithal to pivot on its hips to avoid the brunt of the attacks without losing its balance, feet firmly planted on the ground. A vault of fireballs followed, which the golem ably dodged, bending its knees and its legs to spin around the blasts. The few times it was struck, it made certain to be hit in the chest and waist, the strongest parts of its body. The troops cheered at the sight of such an agile and powerful creation. With it leading the defense, the barbarians of Skyrim would never again successfully raid their villages. They named it Chimarmavidium, the hope of the Khmer. Barif has the golem brought to his chambers with all his house thanes. There they tested Chimarmavidium further, its strength, its speed, its resiliency. They could find no flaw with its design. Imagine when the naked barbarians first meet this on one of their raids. Jawhead, one of the... left. I thought this stain was part of leather. Left one of the house stains. It is only unfortunate that it resembles a Dwemer instead of one of our own, mused Karanithul Barif. It is revolting to think that they will have a greater aspect for our other enemies than us. I think we should never accepted the peace terms that we did, said another one of the most aggressive of the house stains. It is too late to surprise the warlord's Thowin with an attack. It is never too late to attack, said Barif, but what of his great armored warriors? I understand, said Barif's spy master, that his soldiers always wake at dawn. If we strike an hour before, we can catch them defenseless, before they'd have had a chance to bathe, let alone don their armor. If we capture their armorer, Jnago, then we too would know the secrets of blacksmithery, said Barif. Let it be done. We attack tomorrow, an hour before dawn. So it was settled. The Khmer army marched at night and swarmed into the Dwemer camp. They were relying on Chimarmavidium to lead the first wave, but it malfunctioned and began attacking the Khmer's own troops. Added to that, the Dwemer were fully armored, well rested, and eager for battle. The surprise was turned, and most of the high-ranking Khmer, including Karanithul Barif the Beast, were captured. Though they were too proud to ask, Stowin explained to them that he had been warned of their attack by calling by one of his men. What man of yours is in our camp? Sneered Barif. Chimarmavidium, standing erect by the side of the captured, removed its head. Within its metal body was Nyako, the armorer. A Dwemer child of 8 can create a golem, he explained, but only a truly great warrior and armorer can pretend to be one. Publisher's note: there is one of the few tales of in this collection which can actually be traced to the Dwemer. The wording of the story is quite different from older versions of Eldmeris, but the essence is the same. Chimarmavidium may be the Dwemer Chmarthunidams. This word occurs several times in planes of Dwemer armor and animunculi, but its meaning is not known. It is almost certainly not hope of the Khmer, however. The Dwemer were probably the first to use heavy armors. It is important to know how a man dressed in armor could fool many of the Khmer in this story. Also note how the Khmer warriors react. When this story was first told, armor that covered the whole body must have still been uncommon and new, whereas even then, Dwemer creations like golems and centurions were well known. In a rare scholarly moment, Maro Barsul leaves a few pieces of the original story intact, such as parts of the original line in Aldmeris: a Dwemer of 8 can create a golem, but an 8 of Dwemer can become one. Another aspect of these legends that scholars like myself find interesting is the mention of the calling. In this legend and in others, there is a suggestion that the Dwemer race as a whole had some sort of silent and magical communication. There are records of the Psidic Order which suggest they too share this secret. Whatever the case, there are no documented spells of calling. The Cyrodiil historian Borgusilus Melier first proposed this as a solution to the disappearance of the Dwemer. He theorized that in first year 668 the Dwemer enclaves were called together by one of their powerful philosopher-sorcerers, Gagnac, in some documents, to embark on a great journey, one of such sublime profundity that they abandoned all their cities and lands to join the quest to foreign climes as an entire culture. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Eight series of books. Still, we gotta read them after all. Dwemer History and Culture. Is there anywhere part 2? Alright, Dwemer Inquiries. Their Architecture and Civilization by Thelweg Ghislaine, scholar. It has been my life's work to investigate the Dwemer, their dubious history and mysterious banishment. My goal with this text is to share my findings and conclusions based on 80 years spent studying their unique architectural remains. The migration of the Deep Elves from their ancestral Dwemereth, now Morrowind, is a generally accepted fact. Recorded history supports this, specifically mentioning the Rourken clan's refusal to join King Dumac in the forming of the First Council, and their subsequent exodus to Hammerfell. The architectural premise is also sound, as the building habits of the dwarves adapted and changed, albeit slowly and in subtle ways, over time and land. I propose that some of these differences are stylistic as well as practical. Traditional viewpoints suggest that the Vardenfell Dwemer were the most prolific of their kind. Based on my excavations throughout Skyrim, Morrowind and High Rock, I'm not sure that this is the case. While Vardenfell is almost cluttered with dwarven ruins poking through the surface of the landscape, the construction of those ruins is fundamentally different from the majority of what I've observed elsewhere. Further, as we delve into Vardenfell ruins, we notice that their internal structure is quite different. While major civic and operational chambers are found near the surface in the Vardenfell ruin, that is not typically the case on the mainland. Minor passageways and storehouse rooms are near the surface, but more important locations don't occur until we explore much deeper. Because such major locations are well hidden in Dwemer ruins outside of Morrowind, many scholars believed they were in fact not present in ruins outside that province. This premature conclusion led some to believe such cities to be mere outposts. My research has shown this not to be the case. There are few theories that may explain this difference. Perhaps clan architects simply had their own styles and preferences when it came to civic planning. This seems only somewhat likely, as dwarven techniques were based on empirical study. There was likely little room for creative interpretation when it came to building technique. Geological makeup of the terrain almost certainly played a role, especially in a region like northern Skyrim, where the ground near the surface is very rocky and often frozen, versus volcanic substratum common in Vardenfell, or the ubiquitous aquifers found in Hammerfell. It's possible that dwarven architects in the north were not even able to excavate large structures until reaching more pliable stratum. This scholar would like to suggest, however, that many structures west of Morrowind were built after first year 420. When the clan Rourken left Vardenfell, it seems evident that several clans broke off to create their own settlements, and chose to live in greater isolation than their eastern brethren. This theory is particularly fascinating because it leads me to believe that dwarven architects may have developed even more elaborate methods of hiding their strongholds over time. This opens the distinct possibility that undisturbed dwarven archaeological sites exist throughout Tamriel, even in southern areas like Cyrodiil or Blackmarsh, where dwarves are not believed to have ever had a significant presence. Though we ought not to get carried away on flights of fancy, one could extrapolate this logic to suggest that some dwarven clans were living among us for much longer than previously believed, perhaps well beyond the disappearance during the War of the Red Mountain in First Hero 700. Page for notes. Dwemer Inquiries Volume 2. Their Architecture and Civilization by Thelwe Galayan Scholar. The limited written record supports the perception of the Deep Elves as culturally revering the pursuits of logic and science. This stands in stark contrast to the belief system of most other Mer cultures. When we imagine a society structured around such a central ideology, it seems reasonable that prolific scholars, especially in fields such as mathematics, metallurgy, or architecture, would be elevated to social status like that of clergy in a more mystically inclined culture. The idea is supported by a fragment of Dwemer's text recovered from a colony in Skyrim, Irgnthand, which I believe to be associated with the clan Rowarcan. The original Dwemeris in my translation follow. Torre's granted cousin Kuolek of privilege with duties for family home building Hoagen Kultora tradition to Father Mundus Shaper. Some scholars interpret this as evidence of Dwemer worship of Mundus, but I do not agree. My translation of this passage suggests that a respected Dwemer by the name of Kuolek was promoted to a civic position, probably tonal architect. The latter half of the fragment suggests that Kuolek's position requires him to build in a specific style. The term Hoagen Kultora has thus far eluded me, but I believe it may be the name of such a style. It's possible there were several styles differing in their construction principles and typical structures. One earmark of what I believe was the prevalent Dwemer style among northern clans was a feature I call the deep venue. Deep venues are often characterized as being made up of one or more expansive natural caverns in which several other structures will occur. Structures within the venue may be carved from the stone itself, or freely erected upon the cavern floor. The largest and most impressive venues, such as that found in Thardams, may even feature roads wide enough for 10 large men to walk shoulder meets shoulder along it. Thank you for watching, bro. Have a good night. See you around. Arcanexes are typically smaller structures. Very few have been properly studied before disruptions by grave robbers or greedy adventurers, but those few undisturbed cities have contained a surprising collection of magical objects such as soul gems, alchemical concoctions, and magical texts. Some scholars take these as evidence that the Dwemer did in fact dabble in the magical arts. Based on what we know of their culture, as well as the fact that the most arcanexes are minor structures compared to other common fixtures, I would suggest that these were centers of study and nothing more. Perhaps the dwarves established these halls as a means to study man and Mer, which surely seemed as alien to them as the Dwemer seemed to us. Today, great animalculatories can be found in many dwarven strongholds. These were the factories where the centurions and various other constructs were built. I have hoped to study those chambers for clues as to the means by which those mysterious automata are given life, but those same guardians make these especially difficult and dangerous areas to explore. Dwemer Inquiries Volume 3. Their Architecture and Civilization by Thelwe Galayan Scholar. My studies in this text have focused heavily on the fact that Dwemer archaeological sites west of Vardenfell seem to be built at much greater depths than their counterparts near the Red Mountain. I believe there was a specific threshold to which dwarven excavators would dig before the construction of vital structures would begin. I have referred to this threshold as the geocline, but I have found that to often be redundant with the deep venue of a colony. Still, there is some variation in the actual depth of a deep venue, whereas the geocline is always the marker where I reason the city proper begins. Tunnels and chambers at more shallow depths, while often grand in their architectural style, appear to have served little in the way of critical civic purpose. Surplus stores of food, warehouse chambers that may have been used in trading with nearby surface settlements, or barracks for topside patrols are common above the geocline. These tunnels, I have observed, can meander in a similarly more random pattern than those planned structures beneath. I hypothesize that this may be due to the unpredictable nature of an excavation, even to a race as clever as Dwemer. Surely unexpected deposits of stone or geological events could make the effort difficult, and I think that these haphazard tunnels are often the result of the search for suitable substratum to build within. I have found in a small number of ruins reference to a geological anomaly or place known as... well, I don't read these roots. This is intriguing because the term not only appears in a few tablet fragments, but very specifically on ornate metal frames in the deepest reaches of the strongholds Althand, Igthand, and Mthinshaleft or Skyrim. I have yet to decipher the meaning of those elaborate carvings, but consider it highly strange that they occur in the deepest part of each of these ruins. Risen by order cousin of privilege Kuolak of Shizalin, privileged duties, clan home, building Hoagen Kultora, tradition to hailed world shaper. The most reasonable translation of this phrase I have managed to decipher is Blackest Kingdom reaches, but I cannot imagine what that means. I suspect there may be some pattern I am failing to notice. This creeping doubt has haunted my career in recent years, and I have begun to doubt if I will unravel some grand secret of the dwarves in my lifetime, though it lies just under my nose, or indeed under my feet. Good line of books, by the way. Opusculus Lamai Baal, Tamezamurti, a brief account of Lamai Baal and the restless death. Mabey Ewenil, scribe, translation by University of Gwylem Press, 3rd year 105. As brighter grows light, darker becomes shadow. So it passed that the Daedra Moloch Baal looked on Archaea and thought the Edra prideful of his dominion over the death of man and mer, and was sooth. Baal, whose fear is the wanton oppression and entrapment of mortal souls, sought to thwart Archaea, who knew that not man nor mer nor beastfolk of all Nirn could escape eventual death. The Edra was doubtless of his fear, and so Moloch Baal set upon Nirn to best death. Tamriel was still young and filled with danger and wondrous magic when Baal walked in the aspect of a man and took a virgin, Lamaya Beelfag, from the Nedic peoples. Savage and loveless, Baal profaned her body, and her screams became the shrieking winds, which still haunt certain winding fjords of Skyrim. Shedding a lone droplet of blood on her brow, Baal left Nirn, having sown his wrath. Violated and comatose, Lamai was found by nomads and cared for. A fortnight hence, the nomad word woman enshrouded Lamai and Paul, for she had passed into death. In their way, the nomads built a bonfire to immolate the husk. That night, Lamai rose from her funeral pyre and set upon the coven, still aflame. She ripped the throats of the women, ate the eyes of the children, and raped their men as cruelly as Baal had ravished her. And so, Lamai, who is known to us as Blood Matron, imprecated her foul aspect upon the folk of Tamriel, and begat a brood of countless abominations, from which came the vampires, most cunning of the night horrors. And so was the scourge of undeath wrought upon Tamriel, cruelly mocking Archaea's rhythm of life and death through all the coming eras of the Etada, and for all his sadness, Archaea knew this could not be undone. We just need another sap for tea. The Poison Book is a long series. Faith Falcon, Volume 1, Book 1 by Waregin Jarth. The Great Sage was a tall, untidy man, bearded but bald. His library resembled him. All the books had been moved over the years to the bottom shelves where they gathered in dusty conglomerations. He used several of these books in his current lecture, explaining to his students, Texim and Von Guldak, how the Mages Guild had first been founded by Vanus Galerian. They had many questions about Galerian's beginnings in the Psijic Order and how the study of magic there differed from the Mages Guild. It was, and is, a very structured way of life, explained the Great Sage. Quite elitist, actually. That was the aspect of it Galerian most objected to. He wanted the study of magic to be free. Well, not free exactly, but at least available to all who could afford it. In doing that, he changed the course of life in Tamriel. He codified the praxis and rituals used by all modern potion makers, item makers, and spell makers. Didn't he, Great Sage? Asked Von Guldak. That was only part of it. Magic as we know it today comes from Vanus Galerian. He restructured the schools to be understandable by the masses. He invented the tools of alchemy and enchanting so everyone could concoct whatever they wanted, whatever their skills and purse would allow them to, without fears of magical backfire. Well, eventually he created that. What do you mean, Great Sage? Asked Texim. The first tools were more automated than the ones we have today. Any layman could use them without the least understanding of enchantment and alchemy. On the Isle of Artame, the students had to learn the skills laboriously and over many years, but Galerian decided that was another example of the Psijic elitism. The tools he invented were like robotic master enchanters and alchemists capable of creating anything that customer required, provided he could pay. So someone could, for example, create a sword that would cleave the world in twain? Asked Von Guldak. I suppose in theory, but it would probably take all the gold in the world, chuckled the Great Sage. No, I can't say we were ever in very great danger, but that it isn't to say that there weren't a few unfortunate incidents where an unschooled yokel invented something beyond his ken. Eventually, of course, Galerian tore apart his old tools and created what we use today. It's a little elitist, requiring that people know what they're doing before they do it, but remarkably practical. What did people invent? Asked Texim. Are there any stories? You're trying to distract me so I don't test you, said the Great Sage, but I suppose I can tell you one story just to illustrate a point. This particular tale takes place in city of Alenor on the west coast of Somerset Isle and concerns a scribe named Thaurbad. This was in the Second Era, not long after Vanus Galerian had first founded the Mages Guild, and chapter houses had sprung up all over Somerset, though not yet spread to the mainland of Tamriel. For 5 years, this scribe, Thaurbad, had conducted all his correspondence to the outside world by way of his messenger boy, Gorgos. For the first year of his adoption of the hermit life, his new remaining friends and family of his dead wife, truth be told, had tried visiting, but even the most indefatigable kin gives up eventually when given no encouragement. No one had a good reason to keep in touch with Thaurbad, Hulzik, and in time very few even tried. His sister-in-law sent him the occasional letter with news of people he could barely remember, but even that communication was rare. Most of messages to and from his house dealt with his business, writing the weekly proclamation from the Temple of Auriel. These were bulletins nailed on the temple door, community news, sermons, that sort of thing. The first message Gorgos brought him that day was from his healer, reminding him of his appointment on Eterdas. Thaurbad took a while to write his response, glum and affirmative. He had the Crimson Plague, which he was being treated for at considerable expense. You have to remember, these were the days before the School of Restoration had become quite so specialized. It was a dreadful disease and had taken away his voice box. That was why he only communicated by script. The next message was from Alpheus, the secretary at the church, as curt and noxious as ever. Tharbad attached in Sunday's sermon next week's event calendar, and the obituaries tried to liven them up a little. I wasn't happy with your last attempt. Tharbad had taken the job putting together the bulletin before Alpheus joined the temple, so his only mental image of her was purely theoretical and had evolved over time. At first he thought of Alpheus as an ugly fat slotass covered with warts. More recently she had mutated into a rail-thin spinster Orses. Of course it was possible his clairvoyance was accurate and she had just lost weight. Whatever Alpheus looked like, her attitude towards Tharbad was clear, unwavering disdain. He hated his sense of humor, always found the most minor of misspellings, and considered his structure and calligraphy the worst kind of amateur work. Luckily, working for a temple was the next most secure job to working for the good king of Alinor. It didn't bring in very much money, but his expenses were minimal. The truth was, he didn't need to do it anymore. He had quite a fortune stashed away, but he didn't have anything else to occupy his days. And the truth was further that, having little else to occupy his time and thoughts, the bulletin was very important to him. Oh, I think we've read that. Gorgos, having delivered all the messages, began to clean, and as he did so, he told Tharbad all the news in town. The boy always did so, and Tharbad seldom paid him any attention, but this time he had an interesting report. The Mages Guild had come to Alinor. As Tharbad listened intently, Gorgos told him all about the guild, the remarkable Archmagister, and the incredible tools of alchemy and enchanting. Finally, when the lad had finished, Tharbad scribbled a quick note and handed it and a quill to Gorgos. The note read, "Have them enchant this quill." Yeah, we've read that back in the Elder Scrolls 4. This quill was enchanted by a god. Not by... yeah, by a god, probably Shoggorath, and it was from a... enchanted by a soul of a great artist. So he decided to... yeah. He became famous with this quill, but he hated that he couldn't put his own letters in all the bulletins, and he decided to destroy the quill. Nice series of books, by the way. Now I remember them, so we don't have to read them. Right, I think we'll read all the other books. During the following streams. So with that, I think it's okay to... oh shit. So I wasn't interacting with the chest. What? Ah. The dragon located in Sheep Point Rock. Right, I thank everyone for watching. I hope that you enjoyed as much as I did. We'll continue reading all that during the following streams, and I wish you all good night, sweet dreams, and stay tuned for this next episode. Good night and sweet dreams. Let's see if we may raid out to somebody. Oh, Successfully Lost is still playing. She plays The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Let's trade her. So the stream is now concluded. Bye. See you around.